Tonight does mark the beginning of the Tisha B'Av fast, which remembers a series of tragedies that befell the Jewish people throughout history, including the destruction of the First and Second Temples. In the Old City of Jerusalem, the Temple Institute Educational and Religious Organization has begun to reconstruct the sacred vessels for the service of the Holy Temple and has them on display for visitors to see how they originally looked. Director of the Institute, Rabbi Chaim Richman, told IBA's Elli Wohlgelernter about the significance of the temple items his organization has reconstructed.
Here we have a central part of the Holy of Holies, the Kadosh Kedoshim, the cherubim inside. Explain this.
This is a model of the Ark of the Covenant. Of course, we're not making the Ark of the Covenant. It's not on our agenda because actually, according to Jewish traditional sources, we know where the original is. It's buried here in Jerusalem under the Temple Mount. But one of the aspects of our new exhibit here is to give the visitor the experience of actually moving in the temple from chamber to chamber and going into the sanctuary, and then actually in a very beautiful way to be able to perceive from a distance the Holy of Holies, to give us a feel of the awe and reverence of what it must be to be able to visit in the Holy Temple. This is the golden incense altar, Mizbeach HaZahab. It was also part of the service in the temple in the inner, holier part of the sanctuary, where every day incense was burned. They were made from 11 ingredients, and this is considered to be one of the great mysteries of the Torah. In fact, the Zohar tells us that this was the most beloved part of the temple service in God's eyes. It represents something very elusive and precious, which is the unity of all people. We actually have created a kosher menorah out of gold, which is found on the stairs that lead down to the Kotel. This menorah is a replica of that, and we have it here in order to be able to teach about that part of the divine service known as Hatavat HaNeirot, where one of the Kohanim actually cleansed the individual lamps of the menorah each day from the buildup of the previous day and changed the wicks. The 12 loaves of the showbread that correspond to 12 tribes of Israel were actually baked every Friday, and the breads were changed on Shabbat by the incoming shift of Kohanim, of the priests that would come. They were serving in the temple kind of like on a military reserve duty level. They were changed every week.
Here we see the breastplate that the high priest wore. These are quite impressive stones. Are these valuable?
Yes, these are precious and semi-precious stones, and this also opens up a very beautiful window of the research and the amount of kind of biblical sleuthing that we have to do to fulfill these commandments. The process of identifying the stones of the breastplate was extremely complex and actually took more than a decade to come to a working conclusion of what these stones are, because there are so many. There are actually 30 opinions amongst the sages as to what these stones were.
What have been some of the reactions from the school children who come and see this exhibition?
So positive. It's like we have been successful in transmuting some of the most difficult portions of Torah study and Jewish tradition into a living experience. And so the whole idea of how we've been able to really resuscitate these things and bring them alive, it's a great inspiration for many people.
These are many objects, utensils from the temple. How do we know how they looked 2,000 years ago and the size and scale of all these objects?
Well, actually, with each vessel, there are a lot of details that are given to us that are preserved in the tradition regarding those aspects that have to be fulfilled in order for it to be kosher, like the size, the shape, the weight, etc. But then, actually, the artist has a very specific amount of what I would call artistic license to interpret. So it's like his personal contribution to honor the commandment to make it as beautiful as possible. So there are also indications in archaeology and in the sources as to some of the decorations, but generally speaking, it's left up to the artist. And so the idea here is not that these are exactly how they looked in the time of the temple, but this is how they can be made for the temple.